Hey guys, my name is Gracjan Kraszewski and I am a fiction writer and a history PhD and the author of 6 books. And my work is really bifurcated, divided between, on the one hand, nonfiction stuff. Uh, these 2 books, The Hippo Lectures, a book of essays, and Catholic Confederates, which was my revised dissertation, a study of Catholics in the Confederacy during the Civil War, obviously. And on the other hand, fiction. My first novel was called The Holdout, 2018. The recent Seraphim and the Dust Plague, a very thin volume novella. But most especially, the 900-page novel Thermonuclear Mirth, The End of the World, but Not Just Yet, Aruka Press, August 2024. My 6th book, which is coming out this year, will also be my 4th novel, so more fiction than nonfiction in the larger kind of literary corpus. It's a book about the 2 best-looking people of all time, the ultimate power couple, Mark and Anna, these 2 former models, and their postmodern reflections on the timeless wisdom of St. Augustine of Hippo. That book should be out sometime, summer 2025. What I want to introduce to you today is The Lost History of Pullman, Washington, which is another fiction that I will be working on very, very slowly, and have been kind of very, very deliberately crafting the story. And I'll be, sharing this ride with you the entire time. That's kind of my hope. My main focus in between this nonfiction and fiction separation, these 2 camps of my writing, my main fiction after Mark and Anna comes out is working on a nonfiction book, my 2nd historical manuscript, a comprehensive, thorough study of people on the Palouse during the Great War, or the First World War, looking at people in Moscow and Pullman and how they experienced the First World War. And that is by far, number 1, my main focus, both academically, professionally, in terms of just writing writ large. So while after Mark and Anna I'll have 4 novels and 2 nonfiction books, this hoped down the road 7th book and 3rd nonfiction really is going to be taking up, and has been taking up, the majority of my time, past months, past years, the research, the writing, and that kind of thing. All that being said, while the main work that I'm working on in terms of the Palouse is a nonfiction First World War history, The Lost History of Pullman is going to be, I think, my most experimental, purposely ridiculous, maximal, absurdist work that I've ever done. It is a parody of the entire fantasy genre, and I hope something that will completely recalibrate and end the fantasy genre as we know it. Why am I complaining about the fantasy genre? I'm just sick and tired of it. I'm sick and tired of the fact that people are always like, oh, my favorite writer is this guy who writes about, and then insert kind of like normal trope type stuff, and you just want to kind of exhale deeply, and your head drops, and you're like, wow, I've heard this story a million times. So I was like, I'm going to write a parody of the fantasy fiction genre, set it on the Palouse, and claim that it is the lost history of Pullman that has been buried from our very knowledge, been kept away from people wanting to know their true history, their true background, the history of this region, and really America writ large. So what I'm going to read to you in a second are 4 excerpts of The Lost History of Pullman, just kind of setting the groundwork. Today's episode 0. I plan, hopefully, to do this in increments, 10 minutes at a time, 20 minutes, I don't know, however long as I go through. And I'll, of course, have the playlist there, Lost History of Pullman, and just kind of move along down through it as it goes. The Lost History of Pullman is told from the first-person perspective of this guy, Dr. Harold Bly Tornado. He's a 34-year-old guy in Pullman who has come across what he can't believe to be true, but embarks on this journey, and it turns out more things keep coming to light. Very much indeed the titular Lost History of Pullman. And we'll go back through time and find out that the true founders of the city, unlike the real traditional narrative would have it, that Pullman was founded in the 1880s. It really plotted Whitman County, 1870s, incorporated 1888, shout out to George Pullman, the Pullman car, all that kind of stuff. No. The true founder of Pullman is this man, Pier Pietro Mangiatore de Zucche, which is Italian for Peter Pumpkin Eater. Him and his French wife, Marie avait un petit agneau, Mary had a little lamb. They actually trekked across the United States in an early prototype of an ocean liner, thanks to descendants of Leif Erikson in Iceland, trekked across the United States and founded Pullman sometime in the 14th century. Okay, so the first thing that I want to read to you, I'm going to read you 4 sections in no particular order. This is episode 0. Remember, with episode 1, whenever I record episode 1, by the way, no promises. Absolutely not. Anyone who follows this channel, and thank you guys for your support, you guys know I'm not going to harangue you and bother you with, well, a word from our sponsor, or you can count on me every Monday at 6 p.m. No. I'll post this episode whenever I feel like it. No promises, however short or long that may be. I do promise when I post the first episode of the Lost History of Pullman, it will move in order as the story is written. Where am I now in the story in terms of like total word count? Like 15, 20,000 words in, 30 or 40 pages or so. Remember, again, it is not my current literary writing productive priority. That, once more, for a final time, is the nonfiction Great War history that I'm writing about the people of the Palouse. But I will record episodes and post them to this playlist as they go along. Today, because it's episode 0, laying the groundwork, I'm just going to read to you 4 sections, kind of like setting up the story, and some breaking in every once in a while for context. The first section, A, actually takes place about 15 pages in, but it's after the first person narrator, Harold Bly Tornado, tells you, well, this is the classic narrative of Pullman, right? So he ends like this. You shop at the Palouse Mall in Moscow, hang out at Rainy Park Pool in summertime, and watch the 4th of July fireworks at Sunnyside Park. Pullman has a lot of good sports programs for kids and adults alike. You go trick-or-treating on all 4 hills depending upon where you live. There's always a house or two that will pass out apples and carrots in lieu of candy, along with a brief sermon on it's never too early to develop healthy eating habits. There's always a house that leaves all its lights on, with an owner who looks utterly perplexed. Kids in costumes have come knocking at his door. You drive an hour or more into North Idaho to hunt, fish, or camp, and visit Spokane if you are in need of a larger city. Seattle is 5 hours to the west, and many people will tell you they are from the west side. They will do this unprompted and sometimes multiple times within the same conversation. People root for the Mariners and the Seahawks, but especially the Cougs. If there's one thing about Pullman that is universal, it's that. Go Cougs. All this is so lovely and sweet and nice and almost wrapped in a handsome blue bow. Unfortunately, so much of this official narrative is false. Now that you know the official story, if you hadn't already, you will see over the course of however long this takes how much has been whitewashed, distorted, covered up. Much of this stems from the great cataclysm of August 26, 1887. Please see other, quote, official founding dates of the surrounding important towns of the Palouse. Moscow, 1887. Palouse Town, 1888. Uniontown, 1890. Colton, 1890. It all begins and ends with the great cataclysm of 1887, and once you know... Alright, so that's the first section of 4 that I'm going to read for you. There's your kind of like general context. Everything you've learned about the Palouse, the traditional narrative of Pullman and the surrounding towns, is false. Section B is from the top. We're briefly introduced today to our protagonist, Harold Bly Tornado. Here's how the book actually begins, and here's how I will begin episode 1 whenever I do and post that. I'm holed up at Bruised Books, purveyors of chair traveling. Bruised Books in downtown Pullman, Washington, on the left side of Main Street, heading west, where you can find Pizza Perfection, the Black Cypress, and B&L Bicycle Shop. I am lying on the ground in one of the middle aisles labeled Romantic Mystery Thriller Cookbooks. 3 times the girl at the front desk asked me if I needed help, and each time I said no. After I told her no the 3rd time, she told me she was 22 years old, from Walla Walla, and working part-time as a dog walker, social media coordinator for 4 businesses, and here in town in Pullman. That Jane Austen is her 2nd favorite author. She returned a 4th time saying, could you get off the floor because Manager said that it would not be good for business to just have someone low-key lurking in one of the aisles. I'd rather stay, I said, almost pleading. It's a form of self-care. Self-care. My therapist told me the cure-all to all that ails me would be to spend an entire day at a used bookstore laying down in the aisle beneath the books I found most challenging and inspirational. I am supposed to do this at least twice per month. Hold on, she said. I'll, ask my manager. Wait. She returned no more than 2 minutes later. Yes, you can, stay as long as, you like. I thanked her. She walked away. So, here I am. Today is the 4th of July. I say this for the historical record recording. Today is July 4th, 2025, Friday. The outside temperature is 86 degrees Fahrenheit. There is not a cloud in the sky. There are a few other customers in the store. I have been here for more than an hour. I have checked a few times that the historical record recording is in fact recording. It is recording. Confirmed a 5th time. Yes, Bruised Books is open on the 4th of July. They are closed on Tuesdays. Today is Friday. I am here. My name is Harold Bly Tornado. I was born on February 14th, 1990. I am 35 years old. I am 5 feet 11 inches tall and I weigh 181 pounds. I am doctor to my students, Dr. Harold or Dr. Tornado, the most popular iterations. When I order coffee, I tell them to put HBT on the order. In high school, my basketball nickname was FLT, False Lightning Tornado. One game I missed 3 easy layups by basically firing the ball off the rim from close range. One miss ricocheted 3 rows up the visiting fans' bleachers. I heard the ref mumble something under his breath and his face had this unmistakable look of disappointment, like he was my uncle or my dad. All right, so we're introduced to our protagonist, Dr. Tornado. And the next section that I'll read to you, the penultimate one of today's relatively brief recording, is once Tornado gets going with all this. He talks about being tired one night, leaving Pullman for a bike ride on the Bill Chipman Trail, and look at what he discovers. I was tired, and so I left my apartment, hopped on my bike, and took the Bill Chipman Trail the full 7 miles into Moscow. I parked my bike next to the Kibbe Dome and lay down on the grass and stared up at the sky. It was a lovely night, warm. Sunset was not too far away. Some birds or bugs were either chirping or buzzing, and I thought I might just close my eyes and fall asleep. If I slept through the night, so be it. I adjusted my head and closed my eyes and felt the tap on my shoulder. A man dressed in a blue cleaner's outfit, like a janitorial version of medical scrubs, introduced himself as Count Ken of the Kibbe Dome. He insisted I follow him inside the dome and that he would not take no for an answer, for indeed 2 if not 3 times I told him I was just resting here from a nice bike ride and I had to be back in Pullman soon. Thanks, but no thanks. He insisted, I relented. We entered through a side door on the lower west side. He flipped a switch, just one, and all the lights in the stadium came on at once. We stood there on one of the sidelines near the 30-yard line and looked and said nothing until he said, "Isn't it beautiful?" I agreed. It was beautiful. "This is my field of dreams," Count Ken said. "If you build it, they will come." No. If you build it, he will come." "Who's they? Who's he?" I asked. "I don't know. I have no idea. But I know. I believe." "Believe what?" "You gotta believe," Count Ken said, now shaking my shoulders with both his hands. "I tell you, you gotta believe. Maybe it's love. You believe in love, or maybe it's the sound of frogs being frogs, or the way your pencil drags across a piece of paper as you dot I's and cross T's. Maybe you believe in democracy, political polls, monarchy, or the postal service. Maybe you just believe in believing." "What does this have to do with why we're here?" I asked him. "I told you I didn't know. I have no idea. But come on, this way." We took an elevator to a dark shaft housing a secret elevator, one that took us down for what felt like at least 2 or 3 minutes. I am not easily or usually scared, but I certainly was at that moment. Why I had followed the man up to this point, I cannot tell you. I don't know. We reached the bottom, got out, and stood in front of a door labeled, I kid you not, super top secret, confidential, and classified. I looked at Count Ken. He shrugged. The elevator we had come down on had already gone back up. It was cold. It was dark. Count Ken knocked on the door. Nothing. He tapped ever more aggressively as if expecting someone to open the door, but nothing. He kicked the door hard, and then harder, and then fell to the ground, crying, shouting that he has broken his foot. And now we're really cooked. It was at that point that I became very scared. The thought that I would probably never emerge from a room hundreds of feet below the Kibbe Dome felt reasonable, almost probable. But Count Ken got up laughing and told me, sorry, I was just messing with you, having a little fun. He then pulled out a pair of keys and inserted them into a keyhole I had not noticed before. The door opened and we walked into what appeared to be a grand hall. It was like the entire Library of Alexandria had been preserved intact underground. Behold, Count Ken said, arms outstretched, the lost history of Pullman, Washington. When I asked why it was housed here in Moscow, Idaho, he explained that anyone from either Pullman or Moscow knew that it was really all the same thing here. These cities, these schools, they're just the Palouse more than anything else, and the quicker you accepted that, the better off you'd be. Also, he explained, we were then just standing in one room of a massive underground labyrinth that did in fact stretch all the way back to Pullman. The Bill Chipman Trail I had ridden in on was directly above a 7-mile subterranean hallway, 21 feet wide, leading to 4 different research libraries beneath Pullman. One underneath WSU's Bear Center, one beneath Ferdinand's ice cream shop, one beneath the baseball diamond at Krugel Park, a final one at Lawson Gardens on Pioneer Hill, the entrance point beneath the seafoam teal-colored water tower one can see from as far off as Kamiak Butte. Since this initial trip, I have visited the Lost History of Pullman archives 237 times. I know them better than anything else in the world. Count Ken gave me a key and the secret elevator access code after the 3rd visit. He stopped accompanying me after visit number 7, saying, remember that Field of Dreams stuff I told you about the day we met? I'm convinced you're the one who is supposed to come. You're in charge now, Dr. Tornado. I salute you, sir. I know all the entrance points to the archives. One beneath Monica's coffee shop on Deacon Street in Moscow, another beneath the Brown Road sign on the old Moscow Pullman Highway. These but 2 of 27 in sum. 6 of 27 that you know about, counting the 4 Pullman ones I just mentioned before. The Lawson Gardens one dropping you 228 feet into a special collections section dealing with 15th century Pullman poets. I made an archaeological discovery during a midnight excursion that found a 5th Grand Research Library in Pullman 276 feet beneath the Rainy Park pool. The doorway was caved in and blocked by about 10 feet of accumulated rubble. Count Ken and 2 other guys, Fat Slob Frankenstein and Count Chocula Davis, planned the excavation. A team of 20 skilled workers, including what Ken told me were the legendary and esteemed Billy Bob Cornhole, Truckface Smith, and dilapidated Dandelion Dan, broke through and opened the door and cleared the room and dusted the artifacts to a near spotless condition. Therein, amongst other interesting finds, are thousands of American Civil War letters, correspondence between the Kugarius dynasty and both the Union and the Confederacy, penned between May 1861 and December 1864. Okay, so the final section, Section D, final section, this episode 0 of the Lost History of Pullman, goes way back in time. So Harold Bly Tornado has discovered all this, as is quite obvious from both what I said and what I read. And that first section that I began reading to you about the Great Cataclysm of 1887 and all the founding dates being incorrect is where in the actual text the story ends, and it goes back in time to Peter Pumpkin Eater and the true foundational story of Pullman, which begins with Peter Pumpkin Eater in Europe having this recurring dream that he goes to seek the help of this supposed woman in the desert or in the forest who can interpret it for him. And that's the last section that I'll read for you. I will finish the section without comment, meaning I will finish reading and walk away and the video will be over. At this point, the true founder of Pullman, Pier Pietro Mangiatori de Zucche, is having this constant recurring dream that he doesn't know what to do about. And so he's going out to seek help to find interpretation. It will be this first step that will lead him eventually in the story across the sea to America and to our Palouse. On the 18th day of the 8th month in a row, Pier Pietro Mangiatori de Zucche went into town and then left town, and then walked to another town and walked through that town and then left it. And then once more he was on the road to another town, which he eventually reached and walked through and left until he arrived at the hermitage of an old wise woman deep in a foreboding forest near absolutely 0 towns. He asked her the meaning of this dream. Could she interpret it? She said she could, but first he would have to pass a few tests to prove he was worthy. Was he up for it? Anything, he replied. I'm quite eager, as you can see. Good, she said. Then you will complete the following tasks in the following order. First, you must lay down on the forest floor face down for 4 days and 4 nights, not speaking a word, and eating nothing but the bugs that come within the vicinity of your open mouth. Your mouth must remain open the entire time. I will permit you a rest period of 131 seconds every 10th hour, and I suggest you use it primarily for drinking water. Second, you must punch yourself in the face 47 times in a row. Third, you must tell me I'm beautiful and ask me to marry you. I will refuse you, but you still must ask. Fourth, you must massage my feet and tell me that I look young and attractive. Fifth, and finally, I will fill a large basin at the top with live rabbits, and you must sink down into the vat, down to the very bottom, pretending to bathe yourself with the rabbits. Use them creatively in the style of soaps and rags and however you see fit. Once you've done all these things, I will tell you the meaning of your dream. Manjitori Daisuke completed all the tasks in a manly and efficient manner. When he was done, he said, "What is the meaning of my dream?" The woman stared at him blankly. Well? She kept staring ahead, saying nothing, until finally bursting into tears. Manjitori Daisuke felt his shoulders slump. He heard himself exhale. "You don't know, do you?" "No," she said, through heavy tears. "No, please don't be mad at me. I'm just an old, lonely woman desperate for touch and a nice word or two. Your foot massage. Thank you. For those 6 hours, I felt young again. Thank you." "You're welcome. But why the rabbit bath?" "I don't know. I like rabbits. But why have me wash myself in a vat of rabbits?" She shook her head side to side and began to cry intensely once more. "You really don't know, do you?" Okay, she said. "Okay, hold on. She held her exhaled breath at a good and steady pace for at least 20 seconds. Hold on. I think the rabbit baths are the secret to a healthy composition, the cure for insomnia too, and a way to prove to people, even if just yourself, that you're willing to sacrifice it all for feudal lord, family, even the king himself. That's first. Now, as to the meaning of your dream, I think it means you're supposed to travel to a faraway land. Where? Far, far away. But where? I think you're supposed to leave Florence and head west until you reach the sea. I think the sea itself is not meant to hold you. I should cross the sea to where? I don't know. But what if there's nothing out there except more and more sea? I just die in the middle of endless water. That's not possible. Not possible? It's not possible. The very existence of a shoreline means boundaries in all directions. Water cannot exist without a shore, banks, endpoints, framing. You can't just have endless water extending out into infinity, into nothingness. There's another shore somewhere out there. You still, of course, could die in the middle of the sea if it's large enough. I have no idea about that. It certainly is possible. I don't know, but I think you should go.